Joshua,
Yeah, man.
I have my readers on. Do you know what that means?
That you are going to read something.
And it means I can't see that well. But yes, it also means I'm going to read something. What that means is we have another listener supported episode today. This is hot off the press from Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
We have a listener with toddlers. We haven't really talked a lot about toddlers lately.
Yeah. No, we haven't, but it's time.
Yeah.
Toddler.
Uh,
It's
I'm remembering the toddler stage, and I was rolling blank tape for the entire time. So I'm going to have to dig deep to remember because,
well, it's a nightmarish
Yeah.
period of time that we all try to just blotch out.
yeah. Well, reading our friend from Texas, Dallas, Texas, questions is bringing back some things, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, like
Let's just dive in with the
Let's
listener
do it.
supported questions. Should we just go verbatim?
yeah.
Because I think we
We're
got
gonna
to
read. These are not our words.
Yeah.
They're real listener
This
words.
is asking Pretty Good Parent for the toddler edition 1. How to deal with an unprovoked violence. So their child's choosing violence first thing in the morning. This is like hair pulling, pushing, hitting, scratching, ages 2 and 4.
Okay.
Specifically from a 2-year-old, how do you discipline? Are they old enough to understand consequences? How to get through to a 2-year-old who gives 0 fucks, Josh. Like the 2-year-old who bites and hits and then gives you that shit-eating grin. How to handle the talking back and sass from a 4-year-old. Bedtime drama, all the delaying, all the excuses, constantly coming out of their room. How do we minimize the drama? What feels like constant bribing? Like we need to get in the car get in the car seat and go. Okay, I'll give you a sucker when we get home, or you can watch a show, etc. How do we deal with the bribing? Which we did do a bribing episode as well. Check that one. For some tidbits on that. Last one. How do we motivate versus threaten or bribe? They are tiny, stubborn little creatures who we sometimes need to get on our agenda, but they're so cute and so illogical at the same time.
Yeah.
Well written.
Thanks, listener.
From our Dallas, Texas, awesome listener. And I'm sure this is not
Texas specific.
I think this is toddler specific and everywhere.
Yeah. Humans everywhere.
Yeah.
Human toddlers.
So there you go, Joshua. What do you got?
Let's do this. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you haven't been able to tell already, like my parenting philosophy is not necessarily aligned with, I'd say, early childhood development research. I'm not that concerned or interested in what a lot of the data says, even though I feel like a lot of times it'll align with my advice. I just call this like real life advice on how to be healthy and raise responsible, loving, and reasonable kids. So some of this advice might be hard to hear. You might not like it, but it's worked really well in my family and the way my parents parented and with other kids that I've been able to work with and their parents. So this is real life stuff, but it's not going to be the typical like touchy feely therapist bullshit.
Yeah.
So that's my preface to this.
I'm intrigued and scared now all at the same time, Josh.
Well, I have zero tolerance for fits.
Yeah.
Absolutely can't stand it. And I feel like it is a parent's responsibility to nip in the bud immediately. How to do that? Yes, we're going to talk about, but there's zero tolerance for fits and there's zero tolerance for sass. That needs to be met with a swift response from a parent so that they don't believe and feel that this is appropriate way to get their needs met. This isn't appropriate way to express their frustration.
Mm-hmm.
There's something going on inside of them that is boiling over. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it isn't. Hopefully as a parent, you're able to discern, is this an interesting thing? Like, are they exhausted? Are they sick? Are they scared? Are they overwhelmed? Or they just didn't get what they want and they're throwing a fit. We need to be able to differentiate because sometimes we take a different lane in our parenting.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just address 2 to 4, there is probably a little spark, a little bit of a trigger.
And this is the unprovoked violence, right?
Yeah.
Just hair pulling, pushing, hitting, scratching.
Yeah. Most likely they're not just sitting there peacefully. Then they said, oh, I should pull so-and-so's hair or hit him. Something's happened, right?
I feel like maybe I've seen my toddlers do that every now and then where you're just like, where did that come from?
Okay. Well, let's assume that we have no idea where it's come from. Okay. We're less concerned about finding the root. We're more concerned about addressing the behavior.
Yeah.
Um, Optimally, you've had a conversation already about personal space and boundaries and appropriate behavior. We don't we don't hit other people. We don't pull their hair. We don't bite. We don't spit. We don't kick. If we're playing and we know we're playing, there are different, slightly different boundaries, but playing is different than harming someone. And so you have that talk regularly and often and ahead of time, ideally. But let's say you've had the talk and you've like, I've told them a million times, like, we don't hit, we don't pull hair, we don't bite, okay. And they just did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I believe that they need to be rescued from their little emotional storm and essentially reminded that they're not in control of everyone else's space and body. Like, the parent is in control. Now, the word control can be a slippery slope. It's not meant to be, um, a dictatorship necessarily, but it's comforting for a child to know that they're not in control, that the parent knows what the hell they're doing, and that someone's going to like keep law and order. So, hair pulling, pushing, hitting, scratching, 2 and 4 year old. I'm less concerned about how old they are and how much they can comprehend. I'm more about teaching appropriate and interrupting inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So, Justice, my daughter, was a hitter, and she didn't have a great reason to hit
And you're not
necessarily.
talking batting 3 hole for the Yankees. You're more talking
Yes,
like,
yeah, not with a bat,
yeah, okay,
with her fists.
okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
to other innocent kids. And there wasn't a great reason. She was just like an emotionally charged child, and when something didn't go her way, she'd get upset and she would hit. Now, this, I think it probably was like 2.5, 3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was met with a swift response of swooping in, and I would probably grab her, not like hurting her, but I would grab her and pick her up and remove her from the situation. And I'd take her to a setting where it was de-escalating. So usually that was outside, if not a calming room. I would get down on her level and I would say, uh, we don't hit. You hit your friend. Please tell me what's going on. And again, if she's 2, she might not know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hit. That's not appropriate. Was there something that you were trying to achieve or get or have go your way? I want to tap into the appropriate way of getting her need met and then addressing the inappropriate behavior. So, well, he took my block. Okay. Well, what do you want him to know? Well, that it hurt my feelings or that I was mad. It's my block. Well, it's actually not your block. It's his block, and you're sharing. It's important whether they're 2 or they're 4 because the depth of your conversation will be dependent upon that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's less about logical reasoning in the conversation. It's more about a behavioral interruption. So she hits, boom, I come over, I grab her, I remove her. Now she's like able to detect or to understand this behavior that I did was met with this parental response. And now I'm removed and I'm being reminded we don't hit. And I need to say I'm sorry. And if I can't keep from hitting my friend, we're going to leave the house. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to leave our friend's place. So clear expectations, a swift interruption to her emotional storm, and then very clear boundaries of what we will do or I will do. If let's say I don't even want to leave the house, I might say, I'm going to put you in another room where you can't play if you can't treat your friend kindly.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on their age, you'd say, how would you want to be treated? And what would you like if someone asked for the block? Um, but there are a lot of different scenarios and settings that make it harder if you're in the car. This is like a really common problem is if they're in the car and they do have like they're within swinging
Yeah.
distance or
Right.
pulling distance. I recommend to parents, if you can't like quickly resolve it, pull over, get them out of their car seat and take them for a quick walk or hold them up and say, hey, what are you doing? I want them to like be more aware of like what's going on in their body and how they're inflicting this like pain on someone. Say we don't do that. That's not appropriate. if you can't keep your hands to yourself, we're going to have to figure out something on the ride home or once we get home. Well, I don't care. And da, 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 da. Most likely, if you have a kid that is unaffected by your parental intervention, there's been a grooming of behavior that you're going to have to give some time to adjust. So, not to sound blaming, but there's a chance that some parental approaches have allowed this behavior to like foster, like fester and like grow, and you're going to need a little bit of time for that to correct. So, the first, I don't know, few weeks of this might not see the exact change of event or action that you want. But if you stay on top of it, they'll realize this isn't working for them. And that's the whole point is you're interfering or intervening to reveal this behavior is not going to work for you and we're
Mhm.
not going to tolerate. I'm not going to tolerate it. So a fit at the dinner table, which is a gigantic pet peeve for me, the parents just sit there and watch their kids scream at the
Fine.
dinner table and do nothing and act like this is okay.
Right.
No, immediately you're out of your chair. We're going outside and we're having a talk. And I'm going to put you in the car. You're going to sit by yourself, windows down, and safe. But you're not going to be at the dinner table if you can't handle yourself. Now, the only kid that really can't comprehend that is like baby, but
Right.
toddler, and they're speaking. You are in charge. Need to be in charge of their behavior and what's tolerable and what's intolerable. And from my perspective, too many parents tolerate fits and emotional outrages early on, and the child doesn't learn those boundaries and isn't afraid of limitations. And then you come in and threaten in your own anger, and it's just not enough because it's been developing for months. So immediately intervene and show them and teach them and talk to them. This is not okay. And if you can't stop this, we're leaving the house, we're leaving the restaurant, or you're leaving the house, or you're leaving this room, or you're leaving this table.
Mhm.
Like some clear action. It doesn't have to be threatening, like more punitive than that, but removing them from the privilege of that situation to show you have options here. If you want to stay play with your friend, no problem. But you can't hit the second, you hit again, you're done playing.
Mhm. I would say too, like trying to remember back. Well, first of all, when I mentioned that we were rolling blank tape the whole time, it's because it seemed like that happened all the time. So what I mean by that was like you didn't finish conversations with your friends.
No,
You didn't do stuff because you
30-second
were just like,
intervals of
"Oh,
life.
hey, how are you doing? Oh, never mind. I gotta go pick up my toddler and remove them from this." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it is a grind, right? I just feel
so
like
stressful.
that stage of life is a grind. So hey, we all get to enjoy it as parents, and all I can say to you, parents with toddlers, just enjoy the grind, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't know.
God, close your
Um,
eyes and
yeah, and then I guess the other thing that I think popped into my head, thinking back for myself, that you've mentioned in a previous episode, was how parents can quickly sort of check their own level. Like we talked about de-escalation and how you need to be at a your child needs to be at a 5 and you need to be at least below a 5 before any talking can be done.
yeah,
And I think back to then, it was more important for me to sort of check because they're a toddler, right? And so I'd have to bring myself down and then just, firmly but like lovingly just, pick them up, remove them from the situation.
yeah.
And I think it's probably easy for parents to just sort of do that really angrily, and feel like things could probably go sideways.
Well, you're right. You're right, and you alluded to why the parent is always on guard.
Mhm.
You get, you feel like 30 seconds of a conversation or focus until there's another disruption. There's another glass has been spilt,
Yeah.
hair is being pulled,
Yeah.
something's being broken or painted on, and everything's like 30 seconds of like, oh, this is nice. Like, oh, no, it's over. And so that irritation instantly like sparks our reaction. And if we go back to all the podcasts I feel like we've done, understanding our energy and our influence of our children,
Mhm.
I strongly believe my children are both well mannered and emotionally appropriate kids because not every time we're not perfect, we're pretty good. A lot of their disturbances were met with reasonable, calm energy. to model and teach them how to de-escalate their emotional storm.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're 2 or 15, they have an emotional storm. And you're going to be educating and teaching on that energy level, and then also something like logistical or practical, like we don't throw that object. We can throw this object, we don't throw this object.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. But the emotional piece is they're escalated. We're not going to work. We're not going to get anything accomplished if we can't like lower them down. So whether whether or not their behavior, regardless of the circumstances, the energy we bring is always going to be the most relevant thing. 2 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, 40 years old. Our energy is our greatest skill set. And
Mm-hmm.
so the 2 year old and the 4 year old, modeling how you would like them to be talking and breathing and acting while you're resetting them is your greatest asset. That's why I would remove my children and take them outside, because it was more calming outside. I would be calmer outside, which helped them be calmer.
Mm-hmm.
I would talk more reasonably outside than I would inside. Like somehow, like the voice bouncing off the walls creates more tension in me than going outside. So I'd immediately grab them, hold them, letting them know I'm in control, but for their sake and their safety, not to make them feel small, to make them feel comforted. I want them to know I've got you. You're going to be okay. You're feeling out of control. I'm pissed because you're hitting your friend again, but I want you to know that you're feeling out of control for some reason we'll maybe get to, but I want you to know I've got you. You're going to be okay. And we're going to lower this tension and we're going to figure out how to address this behavior.
Mm-hmm.
2 years, 3 years, 4 years old, doesn't matter. You've got to take immediate, quick action that's strong, but at the same time, like calming energy. And that can be a challenging mixture to bring. You're driving, you're walking, you're talking to your friends, and your kid did this thing again. You're gonna get pissed. But if you're gonna parent with your anger, you're likely infecting them with the wrong energy or throwing gas on the fire of where they're already coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even matter if it's the 100th time. You want to de-escalate this one and address it so that maybe next time it goes differently. You want them to see and feel the energy that you would like for them to have. And so the 2 year old, you kindly, lovingly pick up and you say, that's not acceptable. This is not how we treat our friends. And I need you to say you're sorry. And if this happens again, here's what I'm going to do. You have choices. You can go play with your friends, or you can hit again. If you hit again, we're no longer going to stay here. We're leaving, or you're going to be removed from the room and play by yourself. And notice like the calm, neutral tone. You don't want to like get angry at them, because that's reinforcing that anger is the desired energy. I'm just presenting as matter of fact. Here's what I'm going to do,
Mm-hmm.
which then communicates subconsciously they're not in control. I'm in control. I don't want them to think they're in control. I want them to know they have choices, but they're not in control. I'm only giving them choices that have favorable outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go back and return and play with your friend and hit. Well, you're going to either sit in a room by yourself or we're leaving the house. It depends on what I want to do. But you're not going to continue to like hit your friend.
So that just plays right into the next follow up question that was specifically from a 2 year old. How do you discipline? Are they old enough to understand consequences? I'm imagining this scenario plays out for our friend like it did for us with our toddlers. That you'd remove a 2 year old from a situation and say, "Hey, that's not allowed." Well, they're just screaming, going nuts, right? Um, and so I felt like they couldn't understand any consequences in that moment. But I feel like maybe that's just where the de-escalation comes in, and you have to take some time to let them
Exactly.
de-escalate before they can even. But I think
Yeah.
that, I mean, do you think they're old enough to understand consequences and
Well,
be disciplined like that?
maybe let's define to understand. What's more relevant than understanding is like this ongoing maturation, ongoing absorption of lessons in life.
Mhm.
Right? They're clearly learning from day one of birth of life what's going on. Uh, Too many parents wait too long to really educate their children, and they're behind the eight ball. I'd say it's fine to err on the side of teach them early and often. They're going to learn quicker and they're going to learn more the more you're doing it versus, oh, they don't get that, so don't do that.
Mhm.
I would talk to them sooner. I would talk to them early. That's not appropriate. And follow it up with an action that they were more likely to get. But if you don't do that and you miss that window to instill in them what is appropriate and inappropriate, now you're playing catch up, and that's way harder than the getting out in front of it. So I'm less concerned about how old they are and how cognitively they're processing it, more about conditioning them to know this behavior ends in a bad result. This behavior ends in a good result.
Right.
And I'm going to make this happen. And you're going to see over time that this one's more favorable for you and me. So I wouldn't get too caught up on how old they are and understanding consequences in the sense that picking my daughter up and removing her from the room is the consequence. I don't need to have her like write a sorry letter.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to ask her to say sorry to her friend that she hit. But the consequence is she wasn't able to continue to hit and she wasn't able to continue to play. I intervened, removed her, revealed to her that that is not acceptable. I'm here to control this situation while I can at this age and give you a chance to like make it right. If you don't make it right, I'm going to take another action. Those are the consequences. It won't take long for her to realize that behavior doesn't work.
Mhm.
I'm not concerned at all how old she is. So don't get too caught up on now. It depends on what you're trying to teach and what lessons or consequences. If you said like you need to go apologize to so and say these things, and they're like, 1.5, 2, you're like, well, that's not going to work very well.
Right.
But to say sorry, one word, and teach them when you hurt someone, sorry is appropriate. Okay. I don't really care how old they are. If they can say the word, I want to teach that because they're better off the sooner they learn it. I'm not holding them accountable to unfair expectations of their age. That's the only thing I would consider regarding age.
So, all right, so what's your advice? And then our listener says, how do you get through to a 2-year-old who gives zero fucks, like the 2-year-old who bites and hits and gives you that shit eating grin? Is this just a matter of just consistency and you just gotta just what we talked about earlier, just that grind of I just gotta do it over and over and over again?
I mean, in general, yes. There are going to be kids that fall, in the smaller category of, exceptionally defiant, exceptionally emotional. Um, it's hard to say without knowing who the kids are, which of those kids have been, which of that's a byproduct of environment and which of that's just like nature, coming through. Um, let's just say that the home environment's been the same for this kid as has been the other children, but this one's exceptionally more emotional and expressive and violent, and they don't seem to be bothered by the consequences. I'd be less concerned about their attitude of receiving the consequences and more concerned about your ability to ensure safety for the other children and just saying, I'm not going to allow this. We're going to continue to intervene. And it's going to take so and so as long as it's going to take to figure this out. We want to avoid getting irritated with their shit eating grin
Mhm.
and believe that that's what we have to squash. That can be a slippery slope. All of a sudden, now we're the ones feeling like we've got to inflict some sort of pain to change
Right.
their emotion,
Right.
which now it's kind of ironic. Like we're saying, like, don't you try to change someone else's emotional state with your behavior, but let me do it to you. If we can make it happen and it's not that harmful, then it's say, oh, it's actually in their best interest for them to be pulled out of this like unfavorable mood, right? It's not
Mhm.
going to work well for them in life. But if we just groove or kind of groom the same behavior that to us to them that they're doing to someone else, that's not productive. I would change. I would use the environment to make them realize like they're not in charge.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, shoot, now you're not going to be able to have dinner with us. You're going to actually sit over at that table or sit in the car, or you and I are going to have to go sit someplace else because you can't be trusted with your friends or with your siblings. Given the age and the circumstances, I want them to know that they don't get to rule the show.
Mhm.
I do. I'm not going to be a dick about it, but I'm going to let them know like you're a kid, I'm the parent, and you need me and benefit from me making these decisions. you're not going to decide how this goes. You might have some choices to make, but they're all choices I'm okay with. Um, don't get in a power play about trying to get the grin off their face or make them care in the moment. Make the environment work for you and let that build over time that they realize they don't have the power they thought they did.
Yeah.
But how we react communicates how much power they have.
And they know it too.
There
Like,
is this
yeah.
weird little human brain in there that realizes they're able to get mom and dad super pissed and it feels powerful.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of playing into their hands. A kid that doesn't feel like they have enough sway or enough power in the world doesn't like that. And if they feel like they need that and they can push certain buttons in us, they get this weird need met. And we don't want to groove that habit.
Which again probably goes back to, you said like use our greatest asset is our own energy, right? And
Yeah.
so being able to, I feel like that's what sucks about being a parent. It always comes back on myself. I just have to be a
So
better
unfair.
person. So
So
unfair.
unfair. You have
Why
to
do I
take
have to be such a
responsibility.
good person all the time, Josh?
Why can't I just hit put on autopilot and why can't I give a zero fucks about it?
Yeah,
It's just
seriously. All right, so now
well,
our next one is how to handle the talking back and sass from the 4-year-old.
yeah, this
Right.
is
So now
great.
they're a little bit older.
Regardless of age, but let's go 4.
Yeah.
Okay. 4 is definitely old enough to be able to have a conversation about the attitude. Okay. And so here's what I would do. I would probably grab their hand kindly, not forcefully, or their shoulder and say, "Hey, can you talk to me nicely, please? I'm not talking to you like that. I'm talking to you nicely. Let's try it nicely. Whatever you need to say or do, let's just try it in a different delivery. What's the nice face look like? Or let's do a quick play. The play is you're the friendly kid
Oh, yeah.
and you're trying to teach me a lesson about how you're feeling. What would you say or do?" And again, this is dependent on the kid and how open to touch they are and how open to role playing they are. But to try to punish the sass out of them often backfires and pushes that emotional energy that they're having for whatever reason back inside of them. We want it to come out in appropriate ways. You get to have your emotions, but you don't get to express them just any way you want. That doesn't work for humanity. We're not saying you can't feel angry, sad, left out, concerned, scared, all those, fine. But let's talk about how to share those in an appropriate way. I want to model to them in the moment how to have a conversation, even though I'm pissed about them being sassy with me. If I'm angry, I'm reinforcing that it works well to just like speak in an angry fashion. That's not the message I want to send. I want to teach them how to be calm and still identify their feelings. Okay, you were frustrated because we were going to go to that place and I said we ran out of time and now we don't get to go. And you're mad at me and that's why you're talking to me that way. And they're like, "Well, yeah, it seems unfair." And say, "It does seem unfair. And I'm sorry that we didn't get to go there. We don't always get to do what we want to do. I would love to sit there. I'd like to plan how we can go make that happen next time or maybe tomorrow to, teaching delayed gratification in the process." But we're helping them get in touch with their emotions and modeling at the same time how to like let it out in an appropriate way. And the sass is not tolerable. I just want you to know that that's not going to work. Like I don't talk to you that way, and it's not okay for you to talk to me that way. If you want to try that again, I'd be happy to hear what you have to say. And I'm just very calmly communicating to them. I'm in control. I'm not going to wield that over their head in a threatening sense, but they're not going to get by with that shitty attitude, that shitty behavior, because it's not going to be healthy or appropriate. It's going to be tough on a relationship and it's going to be emotionally unregulating for them in their life. So 4 years old, absolutely jump all over that, but not squeezing it out of them or scaring it out of them or consequencing it out of them. Model what it's like to like release that emotional frustration that they're tapping into, that release it, and then problem solve together. Like what's an appropriate way for us to do that or address that next time?
And I'll just go out on a ledge and say this is not relegated to 4-year-olds only. My 13-year-old, I asked him to do something just yesterday, and the one-word retort was chillax. So, so good luck, parents. You still
Okay.
got, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like it pretty much played out just about how you said. I was like, whoa, like, what does that mean? Chillax. Like, how does that make me feel? Like, I just asked you, do something. I go, how do you think that sounds to me? And then he goes, yeah, actually, that kind of sounds shitty, Dad. Like,
Yeah.
I actually apologize that was not,
So if you have a reasonable relationship with your child, you can push in, you can use some relational clout by, in a healthy way, making them feel empathy. You could say manipulating them. You're influencing their response to say, well, hey, whoa, Judd, I didn't talk to you that way. Why are you talking to me that way? Instantly, you reveal to them that they're being unfair or unreasonable and that it
Mhm.
wasn't provoked.
Yeah.
And if they have any kind of relation, you have any kind of relational clout with them and they're empathetic at all, you're more likely to have them self-correct than us needing to correct their attitude. Like the sorry for judging you if you do this, but the unintelligent parenting is, oh, you're going to talk to me that way? Well, I'm going to take your Xbox.
Right.
That is not mature. That's not emotionally stable or appropriate. That's not how we want them to behave. So, again, this sounds judgy, but you could be parenting your kids in the same way that they're behaving,
Right.
but you're just using, parental words or parental privileges, but you're not actually modeling like the emotional delivery or stance that you want them to have. So it does come back to us and how we approach that. You don't do anything, you let the kid believe that they're in control, and that's scary to them, even though they don't know that. And then they're out of control feeling manifests in more volatile behavior versus I'm in control. I've got this. I've got guardrails. You don't need to worry. I'll tell you when you're wrong, but I'm going to do it in a non shaming, non scary, de escalating way, but it's going to go the way I want it to go.
Mhm.
Whatever I have to. Either we just leave the house altogether and like you cry all the way home. I'm letting you know that you don't get to like treat someone like that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm pissed because I wanted to stay at my friend's house also, but I'd rather them know you don't get to dictate how the time goes. I do.
Or if you're an introvert like my wife Libby, that might be the best case scenario, and you get to leave
I have to
your
go.
friend's house early. It can go
Yeah,
both ways.
yeah.
So
Low grade fever, low grade fever is always the social out,
yeah,
or
yeah.
we're teaching our kids
Oh, I
boundaries.
think he just hit somebody. I'm sorry.
I'm
I
pretty
gotta
sure
go.
he did.
I'm pretty
No
sure.
one's, yeah, no one's saying anything, but I'm pretty sure I saw a swing. We have to go.
Yeah. That's for another one.
Yeah, talking back, uh, talk to them in response in the way that you would like without forfeiting your control or influence as a parent. You're not forfeiting your decision making. You can still say, we're going to go here. I'm taking this away. We're not going to go here again, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But use the language and the demeanor that you feel proud of or that you would like for them to.
Mhm. Yeah. All right, so we got the next one here, bedtime drama.
Oh,
Listener, this doesn't get any easier in my experience. Happened last night with 13, 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. They tried everything they could
yeah.
last night. Anyways, all the delaying, all the excuses, constantly coming out of their room. How do we minimize the drama?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, this is the hardest time of the day for most families. Everyone's tired.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're tired, your energy for emotional regulation and decision making and creativity is compromised. So you're more reactive and more emotional, more irrational, parent and child, even more so for the child. So, in a very, very understanding, gracious mindset, know that they're probably depleted. They're not thinking clearly, and they're probably going to behave irrationally and annoy you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to be thinking ahead, like, is our bedtime routine dialed? Today was exceptional. Give them grace and continue to just try to get them to bed because going to sleep is the number one goal.
Right.
How they get there some nights doesn't even matter as long as they're asleep. But how to address all the excuses and constantly coming out of the room? Well, you know what I did is I turned the locks around on my daughter's door
I think
and
I
locked
remember
her
that.
ass in that.
Justice was
I locked her.
habitual,
Yeah, she'd come out for no good reason,
just
and it
constantly.
wasn't good for her sleep. It wasn't good for our sleep, and I needed to realize we need to set a boundary for you that's good for you and for us. You're safe in there. Her bedroom at that time was across the hall, so we could hear her. if there was any kind of problem. But I wanted her to know that she only would come out of room if she needed to go to the bathroom. Otherwise, you're staying in there. And we only had to do that for a few months. And then I started fake locking it. I would just make the sound like I'm locking it,
Mhm.
shake the handle a little bit, and I would just leave it alone. Yeah, because after, I don't know, 6 weeks or so, I don't even know if it was that long. No problem. She stayed in her room. And it was actually on the first or second night. She's like, "Well, I, uh, I just need something." I'm like, "What do you need, babe?" "Well, I don't, I just, I might need to go to the bathroom." "Well, do you need to go to the bathroom? Because if you do, I'll let you come back, but I'm going to put you back in there and we're going to lock the door again." Just reiterating that her needs were going to be met. She's safe, but she's not just wandering around the house. Um, and it was not a problem. Like fast forward a few days, like she was
Mhm.
all buttoned up. And both of our kids are wonderful sleepers. No one comes into our bed in the middle of the night. Like no one's walking around the house. Like uh, they learn to sleep well and in their own bed early. That's not a that's not meant to be a soapbox of like you want your kids sleeping in your bed. You're doing the wrong thing. Every family gets to decide
Mhm.
how they do bed and who sleeps where. I didn't want the kids in my bed. I wanted to sleep well without fingers and toes poking me all night. And I'm a better person when I sleep well, and so are they. So we taught early and often like how to sleep in your own bed and be independent. But
I would say for me, the biggest thing I've learned in this area is for human beings in general, and from what I've read a lot about habits, like you have Atomic Habits by James Clear, and there's a bunch of studies and all this. It always comes down to your environment and setting up your environment for the best possible habits. That's what you did, right? You
yeah,
just the environment needed to be changed. You just changed the lock on our door, and then there isn't, it just takes away that whole thing, right? And so for us, I think it was always, if we had a good environment and a good routine, right? So like the bedroom's relatively clean, there's a book sitting there to like start reading books, for bedtime and like do all those things, but there's no books around and then the TV's on. Oh, and there's a show. I want to watch 10 more minutes of this. Just
yeah,
let me watch until the commercial. Then it just spirals
yeah,
out of hand. So I think for me, what I've learned is just really locking in the environment during that time for that routine.
yeah,
And it just makes it a lot easier, right? And
yeah,
so last night was a perfect case. Again, much older than toddlers. They're 13, 11, and 7, and they all know that they need their sleep and all these things. But, it was a long weekend. We got home, the house was kind of a mess. TV was on. We're all, Libby and I are just both sort of like zombies just
yeah.
waiting for and so like there was Sunday night football game was on. Oh boy, oh, I just want to watch one more drive, dad, one more drive, and it's like, dude, you don't even know who's playing. It's like, come on. It's like, but they'll do anything, right? And
Yeah,
I just feel like if we just had the TV off, everything locked
yeah.
down,
Make staying awake uninteresting.
yeah, and then it's just, so I don't know, that would be my 2 cents on it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and it doesn't feel like it changes quickly because those years feel like they last a long time, but mine are 15 and 12, and there are nights, not during the week, but weekends. I'm like, if you don't want to go to bed right now, I'm going to sleep so you can put yourself to sleep.
Mhm.
Or I will put my son to sleep because he still likes that, and my daughter doesn't, and she can manage her own stuff reasonably well, and she has natural consequences if she doesn't that work. And so I'll put him down, and if he's playing a video game or listening to a podcast or watching YouTube, I usually just say it's time for bed, and he usually says, "Oh, I have 7 more minutes," or "Can I wait till the end of this?" Like, "Well, how long is it?"
Mhm.
"Oh, it's 25 minutes." Like, "No, sorry, buddy." "Oh,
Yeah.
I know, but it is bedtime." I I say yes if it makes sense. I say no if it makes sense. I don't just naturally say no or yes. Every time it's like, well, what's the point? Is what day is it?
Right.
What's he watching? And is what he's proposing reasonable? And I'm comfortable as the parent saying, oh, 5 minutes? Sure. I'm not grooving a bad habit. I want him to advocate for himself in life. I'm only going to say yes if it's reasonable. If it's 55 minutes, like, no, it's not reasonable.
Mhm.
It's not 25 minutes. That's not even reasonable. 5 minutes, 7 minutes? Yes. But I need you to turn it off. And then if he doesn't, then I come in and say, hey, buddy, I gave you 7 extra minutes because you said you're going to watch that thing. It looks like you started something else. That's disappointing. Now it makes me feel like you can't manage that on your own. I'm going to have to step in next time and manage that more. I haven't really had to do that for years with my 12-year-old
Mhm.
because he does turn it off when he's supposed to. Now, he might occasionally forget if it's a Friday night or Saturday night and I go remind him, but uh, giving that respect and that freedom with limitations, the younger they are, the more limitations and the less freedom. I'll
Mhm.
give you, we're going to do 1 minute. We're going to set this fun alarm and this fun sound on the phone goes off that everyone likes. And that's the reminder. It's time to brush your teeth and we're going to do our routine. Teaching them like kind of like time management at an age they don't really understand it is appropriate. Like a little heads up, 5 minutes. I know you don't know what 5 minutes is, but you're going to learn overall, like 5 minutes basically feels like this.
Yeah.
And when that alarm goes off, or I say bedtime, this is what we're doing. That's all great and sounds good. If they're tired though, it's an entirely different monster. And you just need to figure out how not to react, not to lose your cool, and almost like if you can be like a big cotton swab and just imagine like just get them through the bedtime routine and get them into bed without saying
Mhm.
something dumb and reacting to their shitty attitude. If they're tired, they're gonna be compromised.
I would say another thing that I think worked well for us was putting that carrot of like all that process and routine at the end versus letting them do that up front, right? So like for example, it's bedtime routine. Well, I don't want to brush my teeth. I don't want to go, to the bathroom. I don't want to change I don't want to do all those things. It's like, well, if reading the book is the fun thing,
Yeah,
cool. And then maybe I think that's a great idea. You said like have a timer or alarm, or maybe play like a fun song for each alarm. All right, you got 2 minutes to brush your teeth. Then the fun alarm comes on. Now you go to the bathroom. Now
yeah,
get in your jammies, do whatever. And now we get to do the fun thing, read the book, do whatever. And um, whenever we're like, okay, you can do the 10 minutes first of like TV or reading a book or whatever, then I just would always prolong. Well, I want to read one more chapter. I want to do one more.
yeah.
And then it's like you have everything else to do.
If
So,
I so if it was a bedtime routine and I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and they're falling apart, I'd put the 2-year old down first, and then I would probably try to make it a little bit more fun. If the 4-year-old's refusing to do something, I would probably get on my hands and knees and I would crawl over there and say, "Okay, fine, you get a horse ride, you
hmm
get a piggyback ride, and this piggyback ride takes you to the sink." And you can stand on my back and you can brush your teeth and you get back on the piggyback. And then I take you back to your bed and we pick out the book you want.
hmm
And I'm controlling, and I put that in quotations, I'm controlling the situation in a way that I'm comfortable and I get them to do what I want them to do for their sake
right.
without a fight. And I made it fun and reasonable. And I've lowered their energy level. Now it's less rebellion. Now it's more entertaining. And I still get them to do the thing. They're going to brush their teeth and we're going to read a book and they're going to go to bed. That's harder to do when I'm tired also. And I just want them to like go to sleep so I can go to sleep or watch something or do
hmm
whatever. But a little bit more creativity and effort changes the energy for me and for them and gets them to do what I want them to do for their sake.
I like that. You guys got that? Pretty good parents. Piggybacks for everybody.
Piggybacks.
Get ready.
If
Yeah.
your partner is a little
Yeah.
shithead,
I hope you did
and
yoga that morning.
they
So,
need a piggyback,
yeah.
just get on your hands and knees.
Like it. That's fantastic. All right. We got another one here. What feels like constant bribing? Like we need to get in the car seat and go, hey, I'll give you a sucker when we get home. You can watch a show, etc. And we did talk about some bribing, but really specifically for, 2 and a 4-year-old.
Yeah,
What do we, and then I feel like that's such a typical parental situation, right? You got to go
yeah.
somewhere. Everybody has to travel and, do errands and things like that. And
I really don't like the bribing. I'm going to give you this if you do this because they need to be able to just get in the car and do life things without me incentivizing them every time. Is it understandable that they don't want to? Yes, I don't want to do certain things. If someone told me I had to get in the car when I didn't want to, I'd be pissed too. So I get it, but we don't have options. Like we need them to get in the car. Like we have life to live and places to go. And so I wouldn't want to groove a habit where I'm bribing them because that just inevitably conditions them to expect that or become entitled. And that is a monster you don't want to create. So I would probably say, hey, I know you don't want to get in the car, but we have to. Like we're going to. But what I'm more concerned about is what music we should listen to.
Mhm.
Like, how about you get to pick the first 3 songs and then we can rotate? Or you get to decide, what we're dancing to when we're in the car. Or, you get to pick the car game. Like, again, de-escalating and distracting and redirecting them gets them out of their emotional storm, us on the road, and not grooving a habit where we're enticing them or bribing them, or not trying to control them with punitive consequencing kind of language.
Mhm.
Make it more enjoyable. Make it fun. Distract them with something weird or funny to get them in the damn seat and get on the road and have a better time. Have songs queued up, have funny videos queued up, like things that are available to get in the car and instantly like change the mood. A spray bottle that has a nice spray smell to it. Just things that you can condition the environment that makes it more enjoyable versus some power play that you're just going to fight them on, because then you just make them dig their heels in. You're modeling what you don't want them to do.
Yeah. And, I mean, where do you think slug bugs came from, right? I mean, like, we've been doing this for
Yeah.
years, people.
All
It's like,
kinds
that's
of
what they're
distracting car games.
padiddles. Oh, there's a
Yeah.
padiddle.
The dumbest thing
Now
you can
it's
think of, like,
yeah.
you see this kind of car and you win.
My daughter and her friend were driving them to soccer practice, and now it's all Teslas, right? It's like, how many? Because there's not a lot of slug bugs anymore.
Yeah. Do you hit
And
it?
it's
Do they hit each other with a
no,
Tesla?
it's
Oh,
just that, but they have a tally going,
oh,
like
okay.
running count. It's like 58 to 43. Like it's been going for weeks.
Oh,
It's pretty impressive,
getting heated.
actually. Yeah. So,
Something to distract them is at an age where they're emotionally unregulated works better than bribing them, because they're going to likely start to feel entitled and assume if they do what you ask them to, they should get something out of it.
hmm
And although sometimes it's fine to give them something as a reward, getting in the car is not a reward kind of thing. It's like, this is just life.
yeah,
Sorry. But I'm going to make it more palatable by distracting you, and we're making it fun for both of us.
yeah. So, like it. So basically, de-escalate, and then I think you also said, "Hey, I agree. It's not fun." So you kind of
Yeah.
have that conversation of validating their sort of emotions, and then just be creative and
Yeah.
try to think of a thing.
Like if it's my son not wanting to go to my, let's say, his sister's soccer game. He doesn't particularly care. And I don't want to make him feel bad that he doesn't care, because I don't think he has to care. Would she be supportive of him and his things? Yes. Should he be supportive of hers? Yeah. But I understand if he doesn't want to go. So I'd say,
Mhm.
hey, I get it, buddy. I know he'd rather like stay here and play video games, but this is what we're doing. And I think it'll be good for you to get out of the house, be good to watch your sister. How about you sit shotgun, and you run DJ,
Mhm.
and we listen to what you want to listen to. When we get there, you get to choose what you and I do while she warms up for a game. Are we throwing a frisbee? Are we going on a walk? Are we going to the park? Like, let's make it work for everybody.
Mhm.
That's not bribing. That's a negotiation.
Right.
But I'm getting him to do what I want him to do. And I don't feel like there's a conditioning that's negative for me or for him. Like, getting to like pick the music is not like a unhealthy bribery.
Right.
Or he and I having quality time once we get there is not a sucker. That's us actually doing something together. And I got him in the car and we didn't have a fight about it. That's the goal.
Yeah. It's awesome. All right. We got a last question here. How do we motivate versus threaten or bribe? They're tiny, stubborn creatures that we sometimes need to get on our agenda. So cute, so illogical. So kind of the same question as
Yeah.
before, but I think it's just with everything, right? Just all of life for a 2 and a 4-year old, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, a 2 and a 4-year old is a lot about is de-escalating and distraction, and getting them in the place you want them to be, or
Mm-hmm.
behaving the way you want them to behave. Um, there's not a lot of motivation without risking bribery. There is a lot of de-escalation and removing the felt storm that was interfering with their decision making, and then getting them to do what you want them to do. So picture it more like, instead of a carrot or a stick, you are removing the storm in their life so they can see more clearly, and that to be resistant to this, like getting in the car, all of a sudden seems silly. Like, oh yeah, people get in the cars all the time. People go to bed all the time. Just normalizing it and say, hey, this isn't a big deal to ask of you. I know you don't want to do this right now, but I was just thinking we could have a fun car ride. We could have a little dance party, but we need a good DJ. At least the first song. I'm wondering if you could think about the first song that could like get the mood going. Like, let's pick it out. How about you pick it out right now, or you can look at my phone and pick the song. So when you hit in the car, like boom, the music's rolling. All I'm doing is using a calm voice, making them think about something else, and empowering them to feel like they do have power, even though they're losing power because I'm making them get in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a trade off. I'm not giving them a sucker where they feel entitled. They don't always get to pick the music, but this time, because I'm asking them to do something they don't want to do, sure, that's a reasonable like give and take.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, I've likely de-escalated them, got them in a car, and we're all having fun listening to some music now.
Yeah. And I think too, one, I mean, I think a lot of pretty good parents out there will have to just sometimes, physically, I like, hopefully you're all bigger than your 2 and your 4-year-old. I mean, sometimes you just have to physically lock them in the car seat right while they're just having a fun,
Absolutely.
and you just gotta just take those on the
Yeah.
chin, right? And
Put your
you're like,
helmet
let's
on,
drive. It's 30
drop the
minutes,
shield.
and they're literally screaming their head off, and
Yes.
this one sucks. It's happened to probably all of us, but I feel like just if parents are able to model, like you said, that calm, cool voice, and then be able to give them, like another thing that they can have power over, like the music. I
Yeah.
mean, I wish I would have known that when our kids were toddlers. It would have been a lot of. I think it would have cut those screaming 30-minute rides, in half, or like been like
Yeah.
10% of them. You know what I mean?
You're continue. We're going to continue to go back to managing the emotion and the energy, but you're absorbing it, and then you're casting out a different vibe
Mm-hmm.
and inviting them into that. Or in this case, you're like putting them in that. You're not even inviting them, but they're better off. This is not a unhealthy manipulation or control. They're better off being in a better emotional state and learning how to do that for themselves. So I want the parents to feel empowered that taking control of the situation is what's good for them. It's not good for them to let their emotion dictate how the family is going to behave or how the car feels or how the dinner should go. The kids should not be deciding how that goes. But don't scare them or control them invite them into a different space, or in a more sneaky way change the environment to where it's less likely that they're not going to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're not going to do dinner here. And you can't get them to leave the dinner table. Well, we're going to take dinner outside and you can stay here because I don't really want to be around this. We're having a great night. This is a fun song. So and so cooked a great meal. We're going to enjoy that. If you don't want to, you can stay here. We're going to go sit on the picnic table.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm going to put you in your room. It depends on their age and but I want them to know they're not deciding how things go, but if they participate, it can be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they are stubborn because they're emotional and they don't always understand their emotions. And so age appropriately start to teach them and reveal to them what might be happening emotionally and what are more favorable outcomes to express it. Don't wait till they're a certain age. Start that early. If it doesn't work, then just try something else. But don't withhold teaching and modeling until you're behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. Our friend, our listener in Dallas, Texas. Hope that was helpful, and thank you so much for all the questions. Those were great, Josh. I really appreciate that. And again, wish you could have let me all know. Let me know that about 10 years
Well,
ago.
some of this
Would have
is
been great.
trial and error, right? Like we all know what it's like to lose our minds in our
Yeah.
tool. We still do, and we have plenty. But that's why we talk about it, so people don't know they're not crazy. They're not alone. It's hard
Mm-hmm.
because we're emotional human beings trying to also grow others, and it's challenging. So your struggles, listener, are normal struggles. You probably have very normal kids, but we can always be better, and that's what we're here to try to help out.
Yep. Well, again, if you enjoyed this, and if you have toddlers or know people with toddlers, feel free to share it. And keep the questions coming in. We'd love to keep answering those. And let's go be some pretty good de-escalating,
Today, one day at a time.
good energy giving parents together.
Yeah,
So-
and go to bed.
And go to bed.
early.
Lots of sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
good sleep routines.
All
All right,
right.
pretty good parents. We will see you on the next one.
Thanks, friends.
Bye.